Today we're going to compare the Taurus GX4 with the Taurus GX2. The reason I'm going to compare these two is they're both from the same company. They're very similar in the way they operate and the way they're built, but one is a compact, which is the GX2, very inexpensive compact pistol, and the GX4 is actually a subcompact or a micro 9 pistol. So let's start by comparing the price. Currently, the MSRP of the GX2 is only $310. With a little bit of looking, you should be able to get this gun for considerably less than $300. The GX4, currently the MSRP on the website is $394. We're comparing the base model GX4, which doesn't have the optic cutout or anything like that. The GX2 actually is not offered with a optic cutout. It's an entry-level firearm, but it does come in 13 different colors and color combinations. But other than that, all the GX2s come more or less the same. Let's look at the size of these two. And again, this is a compact. This is more like a subcompact. They're built almost the same. They look very, very similar in the way they're built. When you put these right next to each other, you can see that the GX2 is a little bit longer than the GX4, taller than the GX4, and it is just a little bit wider than the GX4 is. So the GX2 comes in just over 6 inches, and the GX4 comes in what looks to be about 5 3/4 inches. As far as the height goes, the GX2 comes in at a little bit over 4 3/4 inches. All right, the GX4 a little bit under 4.5 inches right there. As far as width, the GX2, we want to measure the widest point, which is just about here where the takedown lever juts out just a little bit, about 1 1/8 inches. The GX4 at the widest point, I would call that an inch, but it might be a hair more, and according to the website, it is just a hair over 1 inch, but that is pretty narrow. Now we're going to compare the barrel length. On the GX4, the barrel, to me, the actual barrel looks to be just over 2 7/8, although they claim it's 3 inches, but they're including this little piece right here, which isn't actually part of the barrel if you ask me. The barrel on the GX2 comes in at just under 3 1/4 inches. They claim it to be 3.38, which again, they're including this piece right here, which in my opinion is not actually part of the working barrel. But in any case, the GX2 barrel is a little bit longer. All right, now we're just going to compare the weight of the gun. Unloaded with 1 empty magazine in the firearm, the Taurus GX2 comes in at 21.3 ounces, and the GX4, 1 empty flush mount magazine, comes in at 18.7 ounces. Right, so the GX4, of course, is a little bit lighter than the GX2, but not by much. For this video, we have confirmed that both of these firearms are empty of ammunition, and I am using empty magazines for any of the demonstrations. Next, we're going to compare magazine capacity of these two pistols. So the GX2 comes with either a 13 round magazine, or if you have a state compliant or a California compliant gun, it's going to be 10 rounds. We're just talking about the non-state compliant guns right here. So it comes with two 13 round magazines, and they are flush fitting magazines. The GX4 comes with two 11 round flush fitting magazines. For this video, I'm just comparing flush mount magazines, as there are some longer. There's 13 round and 15 round magazines available for the GX4, so you can keep that in mind if you like this gun but you want a little more capacity. So out of the box, the GX4, 11 rounds plus 1 in the chamber, so you got 12 rounds you can carry. The GX2, you get a couple extra rounds. You have a 13 round magazine plus 1 in the chamber, so you've got 14 rounds. So you got a couple more rounds out of the box with the GX2. As far as the sights that come stock on these guns, they're both exactly the same. They both come with drift adjustable, just blacked out rear sights and painted white dot front sights, and those are fixed and unadjustable. As far as other optics for these firearms, the GX2 at this time is not offered with a optic cutout. I'm guessing that may change in the future, although as an entry-level gun, maybe not. However, the GX4, for a little more money, they do have a version with a optic cutout on the slide. All right, next we're going to compare the trigger. I would expect, because of the construction being pretty much exactly the same, that these triggers are pretty much going to feel the same, but we're going to check that out right now. I did fire both of these guns on the range, and they both shoot very well. So let's just take a quick look at the triggers. So we're just going to Verify unloaded, of course. No magazine and no round in the chamber. So I'm just going to give this a little trial run here, pointing in a safe direction. They both have the same trigger safety. Press the trigger safety in. You have a little bit of play, about that much play, and then you hit the wall right there. Press. Not bad for a striker fired gun. Now let's check the reset. So we're going to press the trigger, hold it back, see how much of a reset we have. Right there. Not too bad. I felt shorter resets, but that's not bad at all. Alright, let's check the GX2. Make sure it's unloaded. No magazine, no round. Alright, let's see if it feels the same. About the same amount of travel. That felt considerably harder to press than the GX4. Let me try that again here. Let me see. Yeah, that seemed to be a harder trigger. We're going to measure that in a second. So let's check the reset. Alright. Reset feels about the same. Pretty short, not bad at all. Now we're going to actually measure the weight of the trigger pull and see how they compare. Alright, so let's start with the GX4. We're going to hook it in right about there. Pull it straight back. Alright, about a 7.2 pound trigger pull. I'm going to try that a couple of times. 6.4, 7.1. After several tries, we're coming in between 6.5 and 7 pound trigger pull for the GX4. So let's try the GX2 and see what we get here. Alright, let's see what we get here. 7.4, 7.08. 7.9, 7.28. Alright, after several trigger pulls, we're looking at an average of a little over 7. So it doesn't measure too much worse than the GX4. It does seem to be a little bit harder, and to my finger, it's a little bit stiffer of a trigger. But then again, I will say I have shot this a lot less than I have my GX4. This is a newer gun, so maybe that'll loosen up. And they're pretty much built the same way, so they're not going to be that far off. Next, I'm going to use this trigger gauge to actually measure how much force it takes to rack the slide on each of these firearms. So what I'm going to do is see how much force it takes to rack the slide until it locks back on the empty magazine, because I have an empty magazine in here. So we're just going to do it this way. Alright, zeroized. Alright, I'm just going to pull it back till the slide locks. Alright, that took about 22 pounds of force to lock that slide back. And let's do the same with the GX4. Alright, zeroize the meter. Alright, let's do the same thing here. And that took 19.4 pounds of force. So a little bit less force to rack the slide on the GX4. Not a big surprise there. Next, I'm going to compare the accessory rail. So one of the great features of the GX2 base model, well, all the models are the same, is it has a nice Picatinny accessory rail right here, which is excellent for lights, lasers, or what have you. The base model GX4 does not come with an accessory rail. And in order to get an accessory rail, you need to buy the GX4 carry version, which is actually a bigger gun. It's going to be about the size of a GX2 because it has a larger magazine capacity with the accessory rail. So in my mind, that's a pretty big plus for the GX2 if you are planning to use a light or a laser. As far as ease of manipulating the slide, I'm just going to take a quick look at the serrations. The GX4, being the smaller gun, does have serrations here. They're not very deep, but they are not bad at all in the front and in the back. The GX2, these serrations are a bit deeper, so you can actually get a much better grip on this slide for manipulations if needed. So they are definitely more aggressive on the GX2. They don't hurt or anything, but you can definitely feel them kind of digging in. You can kind of see on the side here how deep they are compared to, yeah, the GX4s are not nearly as deep. just something to consider if you're someone who has a little trouble with racking the slide. All right, now I'm going to compare the safeties on the two firearms. Now both of these guns have what's called a trigger safety, which is this little lever right here on the trigger. Just about all guns these days have these trigger safeties, and all that does is it prevents the trigger from moving backward unless there's basically a finger in here flatly pushing on the trigger safety to disengage the trigger to allow the trigger to go backward. Alright, so they both have that safety. The GX2, all the models come with a manual thumb safety. You don't have to use it, but there is a thumb safety right here. So when you press that up, the trigger will not activate. And when the thumb safety is off, the trigger will then activate. So that is a feature that the GX2 comes with. The GX4 does not come with a manual thumb safety, and none of the GX4 models are available with a thumb safety. So that's something to consider. A lot of people don't like thumb safeties. It's just one other thing to go wrong, one other thing you need to do in an emergency to get the gun to work. But some people feel a little more confident carrying a gun that actually has an on-off switch, so to speak. Both of these guns are built pretty much the same as far as a chamber-loaded indicator. This little notch right here is kind of a chamber-loaded indicator in the sense that theoretically you could look down in this hole to see if there's a round in the chamber or not. I'm going to use a dummy round. This is a bright orange round, although most rounds are brass and are kind of bright as well. So we're going to load a round into the chamber, and again, this is a dummy round. So if you look down in there, you can see that there's a round in the chamber. Now, the only problem with this type of chamber-loaded indicator is in low light or no light, you cannot see that. So it's basically useless in low light, but it does have the feature. Both of the guns come with the same chamber-loaded indicator feature. All right, as far as ambidextrous magazine release, the magazine release on both of these firearms comes on the left side of the gun for a right-handed shooter. You can swap this out to the other side if you're left-handed so that you can operate the magazine release with your left hand. You cannot swap the slide lock. That is going to be on the left side of the gun for a right-handed shooter, and there's no way to change that over. So if you're interested in swapping the magazine release to the other side, I'll put the link to a video up here in the corner that you can go to see how to do that. The GX2, same thing. It's basically built the same. It can be swapped over to the left side. I will be making a video on the GX2, and I'll put that up here when it is ready to go. So they both have the ability to swap the magazine release to the other side for a lefty. You might be wondering if the magazines are interchangeable between these two firearms, and the answer is kind of. So obviously, you're not going to be able to get a short magazine into the bigger grip here. However, going the other way, if you were to take the longer GX2 magazine, this will actually work in the GX4. It's going to be sticking out like you see here, but if for some reason you needed to do that, they are compatible in that way. So that will work, but I don't see any practical reason why you would want to do that. The next thing I want to talk about is the size of the grip. So the GX4, being a smaller gun, of course, is going to basically have a smaller grip. So one of the things about the GX4 being a much smaller gun that I don't like is that I cannot get all three of my fingers on the grip. My pinky doesn't really do much down here. You can get a pinky extension for this magazine. Again, that increases the size of the gun by a little bit, but if I were going to carry this personally, I would make sure I had the pinky extension so I can get a better grip on this gun. It also comes with two back straps. So this piece in the back here, this is the small and this is the larger one. So if you have bigger hands, you could put this larger back strap on here and make the grip a little bit bigger. So there's one nice feature of the GX4 is you can change the grip size a little bit. The GX2, because it's a bigger gun, does have a bigger grip and it's actually longer. So without any kind of pinky extension, I can get all three of my fingers on this grip. So I can get a much better grip on this gun, and it does not have interchangeable back straps. So this is the grip that you get. This is how it comes. So make sure you're comfortable with that grip before you purchase this firearm. Next, I want to compare how easy it is to field strip these guns. So again, these are basically manufactured the same way. So to disassemble the GX2, there is a takedown lever right here. So check to make sure there is no ammunition in the firearm, close it up, press the trigger, and then when you rotate this takedown lever, the slide comes right off of the gun, and then you can compress the recoil spring and then lift out the barrel, and it's very easily disassembled for cleaning. And then to reverse the process, you put it back together like that, slide the slide back on, and you're back in business. The GX4 works basically the same way, however, there is no takedown lever. There's a takedown pin right here, but you need a tool to turn it. So it works the same way. Basically, you unload it, make sure there's no round in the chamber, point the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger, but now you need a tool. It does come with this cool little tool here or a screwdriver, and then you got to get in here and turn this, then it will release the slide that way. So they come apart the same way. They're both very easy to disassemble, but you do need a tool to get the GX4 apart. It goes back together quite easily as well. Alright, so that is my comparison of features between the GX2 and the GX4 Taurus pistols. I have shot both of these guns. They both shoot very well, and I would certainly trust either one of these guns as my personal carry weapon. I think it just comes down to whether you want a smaller, really compact little gun that holds a few less rounds. Very nice little gun for the price, and it is quite inexpensive. Again, close to $300, a little more than $300 you could get this gun. And I've had it to the range several times and I've never had any hiccups with it at all. I don't like the smaller grip. For me, without the pinky extension, I would not carry this gun, but with a pinky extension, which you could get just for a couple of dollars, this would be a good gun. I would be fine with this gun as my personal concealed carry weapon. The GX2, again, it's a low-cost gun. It works well. I've had no problems with it. I've only shot it a couple of times. It's got a little bit more comfortable grip for me because it's a little bit bigger gun. I actually carried a 1911, which is a pretty big gun, for many, many years, so I'm a little more comfortable with a slightly bigger gun personally. So this is a little bit bigger, very concealable. So if you're looking for a very low priced, decent quality gun, the Taurus GX2 might be something to look into. Both of these guns are going to do the job. Hopefully this video has helped you decide between the two if you're looking at either one of these firearms. Alright, if you liked this video and found it helpful, please hit like below. Please check out the description below for links to some other videos involving these two firearms. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.